different parts of Nigeria. So we have active users in all 36 states in Nigeria from almost all regions. Of course, some regions where there's more commercial activity, much more viable than others. But that's been something that's been very interesting for us since we launched.
The spread, quick spread.
Yes.
Nice. All right. And I'd like to hear from you, Melanie, about something that you've been working on recently in terms of your platform. Melanin Capital helps investors in Africa find impact startups, and you help startups find investors. What's kind of the number of startups you've helped, and a recent example of one that's meaningful to you?
Yes, so basically since we started in 2020, we had this idea of how could we help African businesses accessing capital, because I'm sure for a lot of entrepreneurs here in the room, accessing capital was the biggest challenge that they had to face. And what we realized is that over time, the biggest access to capital we could offer was not only investors, but also loans from banks, because this is what has been financing most of the other businesses across the world so far since the Industrial Revolution. So we started building actually a neobank infrastructure to help entrepreneurs that really were underserved, especially in rural areas, to access financial services, be able to save, access loans, and access investors. And by focusing on that market, we realized that there was gold that we could actually find for them, which were carbon credits. And that's how we evolved since the time we were listed in 2021. We evolved towards becoming a carbon neobank. And that helped us to finance very impactful businesses like Kokari, which is a Nigerian business who is basically planting coconut trees and transforming these coconuts into organic products like chips or even oil or creams. So that was one of our financing. And they can access carbon credit because they plant coconut trees. And then we provide them also loans and then access to other investors. And another one that we finance in our hometown in Kenya is a company called Farm to Feed. And they basically buy the ugly fruits and vegetables from farmers and then resell it to supermarkets. So avoiding food waste and waste management is a big focus for carbon credits. So that's basically been our journey so far until we got 1,500 businesses that we are now supporting across Africa.
Well done. In only a few years. And Mayowa, you're with McKinsey, so not a founder like these two on the under 30 list, but tell us kind of what your big project at the moment is in terms of startups across Africa in your work.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Catherine. And it's wonderful to hear what you guys are doing across the continent. McKinsey is a management consulting firm. Typically, we work with Fortune 500 companies, but we see what is happening in terms of, I think you said it, the engine of Africa's growth and development is really small and medium-sized enterprises. And we have a whole initiative called Shape the Shapers. And we believe that a lot of the tech-enabled businesses, but even some of the smaller businesses that are not necessarily tech-enabled businesses, are going to be your Fortune 500s in the next 5-10 years. And so we work with them through a number of channels. One is sometimes through their investors, right? Secondly, and through that, I've sort of directly or indirectly worked with 5 out of 7 or 8 unicorns on the continent. Secondly, we have an initiative called our Fuel Ignition Club, where we have consultants actually volunteer their time to work with startups across the continent. And then also just connecting them with expertise, because McKinsey is a global firm, and so we can connect them with expertise. So some of the questions people ask us are, how do we sort of expand our markets? How do we go into other geographies? A big one is, how do we institutionalize and professionalize and sort of drive corporate governance as we're growing? So we do a number of things with early stage businesses.
And I'm curious too, when you're working with maybe investors, potential partners outside of Africa who are interested in maybe investing in an African startup, do you kind of find common threads, like they don't realize something about Africa is surprising to them, or what are kind of the common feedback that when they're first looking at Africa, what are they thinking?
Look, I think there are different kinds of investors. We're in a different investing climate, and I'm sure I don't have to tell anybody on this panel. The global capital landscape has changed, But what we are seeing is there's some people who continue to be very excited about Africa and understand that Africa is not one country.
Right.
You can be surprised. Today I was with a team and they wanted to put Kenya and Nigeria together, and I said, Kenya and Nigeria equals what?
Very different.
And so there are a few people who understand what it means to invest on the continent. I think, call it 5-6 years ago, actually not even 5-6 years ago, say even as far back as 24 months ago, there was a lot of exuberance around investing on the continent, investing in early stage businesses, and we saw what I would call smart money, so people who would be responsible caretakers of capital, and not so smart money, people who were investing without even doing due diligences. That era is fast coming to an end, or is even at an end right now. I think right now, I say there's no excuse for ignorance. Google exists, right? And there's enough to tell you about the continent. So I think it's just figuring out what type of person you want to be on the continent.
Coming into a new environment. I think when I have been in Botswana these past 3 years working with the Forbes event, one thing that I've really been impressed by is the kind of adoption of mobile technology, fintech. I think it's kind of far ahead of the United States and other countries. They just kind of can do a bunch of different communications and payments on their phones, and like I'm just kind of coming into that in my mobile device. And I'm curious, Kennedy, with your app, which is financially driven, you can make an invoice right there on your phone, which is incredible. I always at my laptop for that. Where do you think Africa as a whole is in terms, whether better or worse, compared to the rest of the world fintech environment?
Yeah, so the core difference, I think, is a lot of the fintech solutions that are being built now and are needed are solving a lot of primary infrastructural challenges that, I would say maybe the government or the private sector as it existed before failed to solve, and the gaps that existed before now. Very simple things like, an app like Uber will probably have never been built or conceptualized in Africa, because simple things like addressing systems, payments using cards, digital payments, were just not available. And by and large, a lot of those still aren't available in many parts of the continent today. So I think that's really where the gap is, and that's where I suspect the best fintech players over the next 5 to 10 years will come in. Helping the continent do simple things like, look at the biggest unicorns on the continent today. What do? They help businesses accept payments. Like,
it's huge.
That's huge,
Yeah.
But it's such a simple thing, it's such a primary order.
Everyone needs that.
Everyone needs that.
Right.
And the fact that we don't have that means that a lot of the best talent, the best people who are now going to build companies are solving sort of primordial challenges which are necessary and are unlocking opportunity, which I think form the sort of foundation for the next generation of fintech startups and founders to build on top of. And I really think that's where companies like ours playing, and the rest of the companies in other parts of the continent doing amazing things.
So you've got a big growth trajectory, it sounds like.
Yes, we do. We're dealing with lots of challenges, but we do have the potential for that growth trajectory if it's managed well, and if we have the requisite support from regulators, governments, public sector, etc.
Can I jump in and just say two things about the fintech landscape in Africa? I think one way it's very different from the rest of the world is the participation of telcos. Right? So some of the biggest fintechs we have on the continent are your Safaricoms and your Airtels and your MTN. This is not the case in other parts of the world. And then secondly, we did a piece of work just under 18 months ago where we sized fintech revenues over the total financial services revenues. And what we found out was that in some markets such as Ghana and Kenya, the penetration of fintech revenues was up to 15%. This number is around 3 to 4% in the US. So fintechs in some markets on the continent are actually driving a lot of the financial services activities significantly more than what you see in other parts of the world. And I think that's because of the unique nature of what you've spoken about, which is the fact that they're doing a lot of primary type of activities.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Melanie, I'm curious to hear kind of your kind of big vision for how fintech will converge with blockchain and carbon credits and the big opportunities that brings for Africa too.
Yeah. I think blockchain and AI have been like technologies that we've heard a lot about. Every time we have American investors, to just name one country, that come to our continent, that's what they want to see, right? And even us at Melanin Capital, those are technologies we use because it helps us to get down market. But now it's all about how do we contextualize those technologies and making sure that it serves an actual concrete problem that our populations are experiencing. Because what I'm always explaining investors is that I can build the best crypto. I'm not going to pay farmers in Western Kenya in Bitcoin. It's not going to happen. So we can use the technology to make sure that, for example, for carbon credit, we can make micro carbon credits because we tokenize it. So we basically have a certificate that we split in very small parts and then sell it in a marketplace that is hosted on Melanin Capital. But for the end user, they don't need and they shouldn't know that it's based on blockchain. Because for them, they just want to know, is it serving me getting access to financial services? If yes, I'm using your product. If not, I'm just going to use M-Pesa because I need my money today to plant my crops. So for us, I see that there is a lot of opportunities with blockchain because it helps us bring transparency in the financial sector that is really opaque. It helps us reduce inefficiencies because it's now running in a totally digital environment without branches, without all the costs that normal banking systems have, but it has to be contextualized. I see too much at the moment of like only gaming use cases that doesn't help to access the broader market. So we need to do a lot of work as innovators to really focus on how do we make economically viable, and I think we were talking about this just earlier, how do we make those technologies and profitable business that can help the mass. And then just to touch on carbon credits, I think it's a hot topic because, of course, there's the climate crisis happening. But for the African continent, I don't think we should just talk about climate as the crisis and them making concessions about the development to slow down this crisis. Because when you see a country like Gabon, who is 80% of its export is petrol, but at the same time, it's a negative carbon economy, meaning that they absorb more carbon than they produce because of all the forestry they have and the biodiversity. I see carbon as the next funding. So there is a race towards carbon credits. It's still unregulated, but we are excited to play that race because there's $1 trillion to get in that market.
You sound ready to deploy these efforts. You too. Now, I kind of want to shift to our audience and think about the young entrepreneurs out there or aspiring entrepreneurs who may be ready to start a business, maybe not sure if it's the right thing yet. And one thing that I love about your story, Kennedy, is that you every year do a kind of reflection and publish it. And I liked reading that you said just in the past 2023 reflection that all of us need a few years of kind of tinkering to figure out what really is our life's work. And do you feel now like you have found your life's work, or you may still be tinkering?
I didn't know you read that, so that's nice. I definitely still think I'm tinkering. I mean, I'm 25 years old, and I think our life's purpose is something that takes a while for us to figure out, but we definitely can't figure it out without, trying out various things. It's almost like there's some sort of light that's somewhere at the end of the tunnel, and we have to go around in a maze till we get there. So I think figuring out our life's purpose, I think there are very special people who figure it out when they are 19 and just do that for the rest of their lives, and, God bless them. But for most people, it's not like that. You have to work hard at very many different things. The most important thing is you have to build your reputation over time. And as a young person, the most valuable store of future wealth is in your reputation. And the best way you build your reputation is by being known for doing good work, for being very honest, and being someone of high integrity. And when you do that, then so many doors are just going to open for you, and there's going to be tons of people who are willing to vouch for you, that whatever it is you ultimately decide to work on, you're just going to have an army of people who are there to support you.
And just do it very well, whether it's your life's work or the next thing is.
Yeah.
It'll get you toward that next thing.
Yeah.
And going back to you, Melanie, I'm curious if, when you were thinking about starting this idea for Melanin Capital, if you were sort of fearful of entrepreneurship, if you thought, like, this is very risky, I don't know if this is the right thing, but at this point, it seems like you're very committed, it's the right thing, and you're sticking with it. How did you feel in the beginning, though?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's very funny because when you start, you are crazy, right? And everyone is taking a lot of time telling you how crazy you are until you end up in a Forbes list, and that really is helpful. But I would say that when I started, what really, really helped me is my co-founder, Ian Minjiri, who is just here, who really is the only one who said, "You're crazy, but I see your vision." And that changes everything. I think for young people who are trying to start, you're very tempted to start alone and to be like, oh, I know what the solution is, and I'm going to go with my flag and, change everything.
Right.
But what is the most important is the people who you go with, because there are moments that you're going to be alone. There are moments that are not going to be glamorous with heels on a Forbes stage, and you'll need those partners who will be next to you and tell you, we can do this, and we'll be able to do this. When I started, I was actually employed, and Melanin Capital is actually a project I proposed to my job, and they actually told me how stupid of an idea it was, and I had to start by myself. And this journey of trying with my co-founder to solve a problem because we were fundamentally passionate about the problem, that's what helped us to stick to it. And to always think that we were in the right direction, because we're not in love with the solution per se. We're not in love with any technology or any app. How it would look at it, it didn't matter. The most important is how are we going to solve this issue of access to finance, be it loans, being carbon credits, being equity. It's not the issue here. It's how do we make sure that a farmer, when they start and they can see that they can plant avocado but they don't have avocado seedlings, how do we make sure that they get the money to access the working capital they need to plant those seedlings, create those trees, and sell the avocados. That was the baseline of what we wanted.
Okay.
So that's what helped us to continue.
Sounds like you need a really good support system, whether it's a co-founder or someone who believes in you, and you need to believe in yourself and your product really wholeheartedly.
Exactly.
All right, gotcha. And I know we only have a little bit of time left, so my question for you, Maiwa, is you've worked with 5 different African unicorns, you said, helping them grow and raise investing. What do you see in them that was kind of their secret sauce that really made them succeed?
I'm not going to say too much that's different from what Kennedy and Melanie have already said. The question is, what problem are you trying to solve? What makes you angry, right? That was what one person asked me when I was trying to figure out what my passion was. What makes you angry? And focus on creating value. I see too many people focused on valuation. Focus on creating value over valuation. Figure out what that problem is. And as Kennedy said, I think it's important to be a person of integrity. I think it's important to have a good reputation. And I think it's very, very important to make sure that you're focused on what the end result and end deliverables are going to be, because it's not going to be an easy ride. So have some staying power as well.
I think those are some good pieces of advice. So maybe the next FinTech unicorn is in this room. You can use these examples to build it. And that's our time, so I'm going to wrap us up there. But thank you so much for doing this, and thank you all. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For our next conversation, globalizing African music and languages, please welcome interviewer Chanel Retief, multimedia journalist and under 30 curator Forbes Africa, and Mposi Bina, artist, melodist, and songwriter.
Clap for myself.
I think you should clap for yourself, because did you see that
100%.
performance that you gave last night? Can we give her a round of applause? Oh my gosh. It was amazing. I had goosebumps the entire time.
I'm
And I
glad.
think what helps us have this conversation is I know that you were heavily influenced and inspired by the likes of Brenda Fassie and Boom Shaka. What was it about those artists that inspired you, and how is that reflecting in your music right now?
For the mere fact that I am an African woman, well, first of all, Dumelang, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. For the mere fact that I am an African woman, and as an African child growing up, it was great to see women on the TV screen who express themselves freely and beautifully, and also in the same time celebrating their culture, their heritage, through their language, but also through fashion and in so many facets about themselves. So yeah, it was great growing up in that era, watching these beautiful Black African women expressing themselves through music that inspired me to be the artist that I am today.
I know that a big part of, the way you do music is about, educating the global stage about cultural aspects of music.
Yeah.
And as a Setswana artist, that is really important to you. What does that education look like for you? Because coming onto the global stage, when we talk about African music, we recognize Amapiano quite a lot. We recognize Afrobeats quite a lot. But for you, how do you get, language and culture to play a really important part in, the other parts of music that we do on this continent?
There's no avoiding it, At the end of the day, ke Motswana, ke bua Setswana, and ke apara Setswana, and there's just the Setswana culture. The culture lives within me. There's nothing I can do about it. In expressing myself, it just comes out that way. We have a beautiful culture. We have incredible creatives in this country from all walks of life, from fashion to jewelry. And in being a Motswana artist, I have to stay true to my guns and celebrate my heritage, my language, our music, the sounds that come from here, and keep at it until the whole world catches up. I think it's really beautiful what the West have done with Afrobeats, and that when it started 15 years ago, I'm not saying it started 15 years ago, but when it started, the whole world had to catch up, but they stayed true to themselves, from the music, but also if we look at Nollywood, the production has come from little to an incredible multi-billion-dollar industry, as well as, how South Africa, Amapiano started, and, it's beautiful, the age that we're living in with technology and the TikToks and Instagrams. There's no ways about it. There's no gatekeeping African culture and music, because the numbers speak for themselves, the work speaks for itself, and, this is where we are in the world today.
The numbers do not lie.
Yeah,
You're quite
they don't
correct,
lie,
right?
yeah.
But with that, we're seeing this big boom in the creative economy coming from Africa, and the global stage wants a slice of the African pie.
Yeah.
They want what's happening here, and they're so excited about it, and so are we.
Yeah.
But with that, how do we ensure that we continue to, make sure that we're the ones telling our story, that the narrative isn't being told or, controlled by the global West?
I heard some people speak about how it is important and how, content is the new gold and IP. It's very important to own your stories and own your music and own your intellectual property. I think it's a very important thing, and a very important thing to learn right now, that the world is looking at Africa. Africa has always been hot. The world is catching up now. But, it's always been where it's at, and it's really important for us to own our content and own our creative works.
Part of that is also looking at, when we focus on Africa, we look at our bigger economies, like Nigeria and South Africa and Tanzania and stuff. But we're seeing slowly but surely the smaller economies like Botswana are coming to the forefront and saying, hey, we're here too. You're not going to ignore us. Talk to us about the importance of people paying attention to our smaller economies.
Yeah, it is a small economy, but I'll give an example with Jamaica. I think they have the same population as we do. It's about 2 million people. There's 2 million people of us here. But if you look at how dancehall is such a huge movement, we look at the Bob Marley movement, the numbers are small, but the music speaks for itself. And it goes back to what I said about staying true to your sound and waiting for the whole world to catch up with it, because I think once we're confident in ourselves and in our artistry and in the works that we do, the whole world then will catch up. So it's very important for us to, you know, just go gung-ho about it and stay true to our aesthetic, our language, and the world will catch up.
Paul, reflecting on your journey,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's been not without its challenges and
Yeah.
setbacks, and you've obviously had to, you know, figure out how to navigate this music space, and as a woman as well. What advice would you give, just on the basis on the reflection of your journey, would you give to an aspiring young artist? Maybe she's sitting here in Botswana, maybe, you know, she's in South Africa, anywhere in the world. What advice would you give to them? What can you give them from your learnings?
I would say keep creating, stay creating, make use of the beautiful invention that is the internet. You know, we're living in such a great TikTok, Instagram era. Upload your works and publish your works, because once you put it up there, basically the whole world is your audience. So stay working, stay posting, stay developing, stay learning, educate yourself about your industry, about your field. I also think it's very important for us as creatives and artists to diversify our income streams, because yes, art is, you know, it is a business, but it's also quite a delicate matter, and I think that creating is a delicate matter, and sometimes it's good to ease the pressure off of your artistry and make money somewhere else, whether you're selling bread or oranges on the weekend. Just get money somewhere so this art can be a beautiful place for you to...
So be about your money, basically.
Yeah, be about your money and be about your creativity.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I
Thank
hope
you.
that, you know, from your learning, someone will take this and just flourish as much as you have.
I hope
Thank
so
you
too.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now, the spotlight entitled Optimizing Your Talents for Success. Please welcome Lesego Chombo, attorney, entrepreneur, and reigning Miss World Africa.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you all. And thank you so much for the warm welcome. I am here as a living testament of what talent can do. I have personally experienced that talent can leave the world at a standstill. It can unite nations. And most importantly, for today's purposes, it can foster economic growth. Let me give you a bit of context. I'm an attorney by profession, practicing, admitted and practicing. However, it is my talent in the creative industry that has created room for me in terms of economic advancement. It is my talent that has put me in rooms that so many young people have not and might not ever have access to. By virtue of being a beauty queen, first as Miss Botswana and now as Miss World Africa, I have a stature that gives me access to opportunities that even the learned cannot acquire. My talent has given me pure privilege. And I am fully convicted that with the rising advocacy for investment and entrepreneurship, it is crucial for young people to actively invest in their talents for economic advancement. And very briefly, I am delighted to be sharing with you the strategy that I have used in order to optimize my talents. First and foremost, investment, investment, investment. It is a theme that is constantly running around the air when it comes to Forbes. How many of us actively invest in our talent? Our talents need to not just be hobbies. It needs to be something that you realize first and foremost that it's a vehicle for economic advancement. And if you do not invest in it, so many other people will not. It took me 5 years to prepare for Miss World, for Miss Botswana, and a total of 7 years to get to the Miss World stage. And this is not because I had nothing to do, but it's because I had understanding that my talent was a key to my economic success. And nothing successful happens unless you prepare. The next stage is finding the right vehicle for your talent. Context once again. I speak and sing and play guitar, etc., etc., but so do many other people. What sets us apart is that we find the right vehicle to give us exposure and visibility in order for us to optimize our talents for economic advancement. In this sense, the platform that I chose for obvious reasons and as known to many is pageantry. But it is subjective. All of us have different talents, but what is it that you are actively using in order to gain visibility? Because we live in a digital world, and visibility is essential. Third, commercializing our talent. I am personally very exhausted of having so many talented people who on social media seem like they're having the time of their lives and they're living lavish, when in actual fact, we're not. So many young people who are talented are not living lavish. And this is because we lack the key element, which is commercializing our talent. Our talent is not just for entertainment. It is not just for fun. It is in order to elevate our lives and create generational wealth for so many generations to come. And so it is important to build a brand around your talent, to identify target audiences and platforms that generate revenue rather, and leverage on social media, leverage on endorsements and collaborations that align with your brand and your talent. And last but not least, impact and value. This is my favorite. There are so many things that we as young people do that we benefit from. But I can tell you for sure, the one thing that people invest in is something that is beneficial and valuable to others. Not to you, but to others. And that is why it is important for us to align our talent to the value system. What impact and value does it add to the economy? What impact does your talent add to the society? This alignment is exactly what is going to lead to you having sustainable partnerships with the government, with key stakeholders, with Forbes, and with many others. And in my case, I have not only optimized my talent for economic growth, but also for social impact through the Genesis project. With this last tool, your talent becomes bigger than you and for the benefit of all. And you sow a seed for other success as well. That is how you now optimize your talent, not just for yourself, but for the continent of Africa. Thank you.
Now, for our next session, Raising Money, what VCs are looking for now in Africa. Please welcome back moderator Yandile Nuku, Startup Support Regional Program Manager, Co-Creation Hub, and panelists Hope Ditakanyane, Investment Principal, Founders Factory, Christine Namara, Partner, Flat 6 Labs Africa Seed Fund, and Uemakpan, Head of Investment Launch Africa VC.
Right, welcome everybody to the session on raising money, what VCs are looking for in Africa now. And I think it's quite interesting that when we look at the top 4 markets where we've got startups that are raising the most capital, it's 4 markets. It's South Africa, it's Kenya, it's Nigeria, and as well as Egypt. And I believe you all have representation in these markets, and so you're the relevant people to give us some of the insights of what's currently happening. Perhaps, Hope, we can start with you. And tell us a little about what are the trends that you're seeing and some of the key factors that you look into when you're trying to invest in startups.
Yeah, well, hi everyone. I'm super excited to be here. I think I'll start with a short intro to Founders Factory Africa. So we are a $140 million US dollar fund. We invest across the continent, have about 80 portfolio companies spread across the whole continent. And we use a catalytic funding model, so we do invest equity and low interest loans in order to grow startups across the continent. In terms of what we look for, I would summarize it into 3. The first thing that's always key, and I think any investor would tell you, is the founders. So we really stress test how deeply connected to the problem the founders are, and does this connection give them unique insights into the problem in a way that they can build a differentiated solution. And then the second piece on the solution itself, are there acquirable assets and a pathway towards commercial scale in a growing market? And then lastly, are they coachable, right? We look for entrepreneurs that are able to consistently take feedback from their investors, from their customers, and from a range of different stakeholders in order to solidify their value proposition. So that's what we look for in a nutshell.
Okay, perfect. Christine, maybe you also want to give a brief intro on Flat 6 Labs and then share if you've got any deviation from the 3 factors that Hope has given, or you've got something to add.
Of course. Hello, everyone. Really happy to be here and, of course, sharing a stage again with these good people here. My name is Namara. I'm partner at the Africa Seed Fund by Flat 6 Labs. It's an $85 million fund investing in East, West, and North Africa at early to seed stage startups, tech and tech-enabled businesses. We've been in the market for 13 years now with 218 portfolio companies in Africa and looking to grow that by another 170 in the next 5 years. Without repeating everything that Hope has said, I'll add one thing. When you come to a venture capitalist for investment, we're looking for returns. So these things are a prerequisite for founders who can give us returns, and so that's all I'm going to add. If I give you my capital, how much do I get back in 5 to 10 years?
Okay, perfect. Uam, maybe you two as well. Give you a chance to talk a little bit about Launch Africa. Anything you want to add besides the talent, the market, opportunity, whether they're coachable, as well as whether they've got a good potential for return on investment?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Uam. People often view me as the bridge between founders that are building sustainable businesses on the continent and investors that are trying to maximize their returns on the continent. I lead investments at Launch Africa Ventures, and what we are is a multi-stage, multi-sector fund that has invested over 150 companies on the continent. So if you're building something great, that's sustainable, that's tech-enabled, you should be speaking to all of us on stage. Just to add a bit to what they've said, I'd say, one, the founder should also have communication skills, because it's one thing to know how to build a great product, it's another thing to communicate your value or your unique selling point to whoever is listening to you, be it the investors, be it the customers. So that is very, very essential. If you cannot communicate exactly what you're building, then I cannot understand the value that you're trying to offer. And then there has to be commitment, there has to be skin in the game. You can't come to me and say, hey, I have this idea, I'm building this amazing thing, and I say, what have you done? And you're like, oh, it's just an idea. Nobody invests. I mean, 1 times 0 is 0 for those of you that did maths in school, right? So if you come to me and there's no skin in the game, in fact, I don't see that you have experience in the industry, I don't see that you've actually put in effort to actually build out that idea or that product or that business that you're trying to build, then I definitely will not be giving you my money.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is we often look at VCs as seeking for help, or that you've got financial capital to assist the startups. But on your end, you've also got some challenges. What are you seeing in the African market in terms of the startup pipeline? Is it frequent? Is it consistent? Or there's a need to even build a startup pipeline that creates opportunities for your deal flow? Any one of you can go first.
I'm happy to take a crack at it. So we were actually having this conversation briefly a little earlier, where the challenge that we have on the continent is limited capital. It's not limited ideas or limited entrepreneurs. You will meet entrepreneurs who are lacking in certain skill sets, in certain things that they need to do to grow their businesses, but it's never a shortage of pipeline. And another thing that we do, and I think we all do this as well, is our work is also to build the pipeline. So it's not about sitting back and hoping that entrepreneurs will throw themselves at you and you'll get good pipeline. It's about reaching back and going to actually build startups from the jump so that you have pipeline. So I think our problem is capital. It's not entrepreneurship.
Okay. Any additions?
Yeah, I would add 2 things. I think the first one is obviously being an entrepreneur on this continent. I think everyone will attest to the fact that it's quite difficult, right? And I think it's difficult for a variety of reasons, but I'll highlight 3. I think the first one is like to add on the point around capital, but there's also a need for diversity of that capital. So obviously there's certain functions that equity can play in terms of catalyzing growth for startups, but then equity is not the only type of instrument that's quite useful in terms of catalyzing the growth of African businesses. So we need more debt, we need more grant capital and other innovative funding instruments in order to drive that growth. I think the second piece is distribution. Distribution is super expensive to access, particularly for consumer markets. And how do we get telcos, banks, insurance companies with that existing distribution and trust in the market to come to the party and collaborate with a lot of these solutions so that they can reach more people. And then I think the last one that I'll mention is, part of the exit conversation. I think it's quite difficult in terms of how do you have business models that can outpace some of the macro headwinds that the startups are facing, right? So there's currency devaluation, there's inflation rates. So how do you figure out the best way to have a business model that can consistently grow, show that growth trajectory that is outpacing some of these macro headwinds that we're faced with? And all these are the complexities that do impact an entrepreneur. And I think all of our investment funds have value-added platforms that can support in terms of not only capital, but how do you navigate some of these other challenges so that you can build a sustainable business that can return investor capital.
Fantastic. Ruam, you want to add?
I just wanted to rehash something that she said. Africa has no dearth of entrepreneurs. We have so many, from Accra to Kampala to Joburg. You have great people solving critical problems in their ecosystem. So we don't have, a founder problem. We have an access to capital problem and a diversity of capital problem. And that's one of the things we are trying to solve. And that's why we're also trying to tell better stories about the continent. Yes, everybody's screaming about IPOs, but there are exits and mergers that are happening here and there. There are people that are building great businesses that are scaling, every day. And I'd like to add to all the entrepreneurs and founders in the room, you don't actually have to raise money to build a great business. Unfortunately, you would say 2022 was an anomaly. Everybody thought I could just pitch something, raise money, and boom, I'm a rich person, right? So it's very important for you to know that you don't actually have to raise money to build a great business. You can bootstrap, and there are examples of great businesses across Africa that were built on just bootstrapping and getting a couple of loans or from family and friends. So I just have to put that out there. But for Launch Africa, what we see is we think that the African founders have a more critical problem, and it's not access to capital. We think it's the hand-holding and support that comes after they have access to capital. I promise you, go around Africa and ask founders what their second-time founders what their biggest problem is. They won't tell you it's capital. Obviously, capital is one of their problems, but they will tell you it's the other things that they suffer, they struggle with. Corporate governance, access to new markets, sometimes just mentorship. Because it's a lonely game. Sometimes you need someone to just listen to you and advise you, in what you're doing. It's harsh government policies across the continent. So there are a myriad of things. And at Launch Africa, what we've done is we've built out a portfolio support team that what they do, their bread and butter is every day wake up in the morning and think about how do we support our portfolio companies. We do regular office hours where they call in, and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I couldn't hire this person, or I had to fire this person. How do I go about it? Because we believe that the greatest value is created while supporting the founders and not necessarily by just deploying capital.
Fantastic. Let's talk about what you're looking for in terms of sectors in your different funds. Maybe we can start with you. Are you sector specific? Let's talk about 2024 now, or you're sector agnostic?
Yeah, so we are sector agnostic, but I will have the caveat that, the way we look at the evolution of the various markets, because we do invest across the whole continent, so there's very different regional nuances that we do account for. The first baseline is always financial infrastructure, right? I think much of business value across the continent is the movement of people, of goods, and of money. But a lot of them are enabled through bringing people online for the first time and building that digital infrastructure. So fintech and financial inclusion will remain key themes, but we are more focused in specific areas such as Francophone Africa and North Africa, where we see that there's immense potential. So anything around B2B remittance, payment orchestration, we're super interested in those themes. And then once there is that financial layer, like you see in South Africa or Nigeria, there's a lot more that you can add on that around healthcare, agri-tech, logistics, commerce. But we're always interested in any opportunity that, can be commercially scalable. So I don't want to just restricted to these sectors that I've mentioned. So anyone with an interesting idea, if you believe that it can serve underserved populations across the continent, we're more than happy to invest.
I want to ask you, in your portfolio, what have you seen as the most impressive or progressive sector in terms of what you've personally invested in? You can ponder on that. I want to move to Christine in the meantime and tell us a little bit about your sector focus as the fund.
So the Africa Seed Fund is multi-sector, is what we call it. We're heavily focused on sectors that have high impact, and I'm guessing it's going to be the same kind of like balance in all of our portfolios. So that's going to be, especially on the continent, financial services, health tech, ag, ICT, and ed tech and things like this. So we are looking for founders who are solving real problems, who are giving customers value, and at a large scale. So I would say this is broadly what we're focused on.
Okay, Gwen?
Yeah, not so different from them, but for us, the focus is how do we create the most value from day one once you get into our portfolio? How do we create a portfolio synergy, right? How do we build an ecosystem in our 150, big, strong portfolio across Africa, across 22 countries in Africa, actually? How do we build a synergy where if we invest in a company in South Africa, in the next 2 years, we are talking about, getting into Ghana, and there's a Ghanaian startup in our portfolio that could actually enable them do that. Or they have customers in Ghana that they need to service, and that Ghanaian portfolio does that for them. So for us, it's how do we create that synergy? How do we build, a brain trust of founders who have varying experiences across the continent? When you put that together, that becomes, a solid base for, or a solid foundation for, businesses to grow and scale across the continent. So that's what's one of the things that's important to us.
Okay, Hope, I don't know if you want to jump in. I've been seeing some trends in the startup space personally across Africa. It used to be fintech, and then there was a wave on ed tech. It's still there. There's now a wave on climate tech. But to the question that I had asked earlier, in terms of the portfolio that you're currently carrying, what have you seen as the most progressive sectors that have given you a good ROI?
Yeah, definitely commerce, and how I'll describe it as anything that helps SMEs across the continent come online and grow.
Okay.
And, SMEs can be multiple different versions. It can be micro traders that have like specific crafts, and how do they access markets. And one startup I'll highlight is one in Kenya that actually takes a lot of different micro traders and women who do arts and crafts and actually connects them to US markets, so the biggest retailers in the US. Once you solve for the distribution problem, and then the next layer is working capital, right? So then now there's an embedded fintech play into that. So it's grown quite expansively. It's expanded to the US and then Asia, and super excited for the founder to obviously announce much more milestones. But there's many versions of that we see in agri-tech, which is quite similar, aggregating smallholder farmers and then essentially providing them with access to markets. So another one we have in Egypt called Fresh Source. They just got an export license to then distribute produce from Egypt to the rest of the MENA region. So anything that is, structuring fragmented markets, digitizing them, and then giving them access to markets and financial services is a theme that has been quite interesting for us.
Okay. Any additions?
Yeah, I think it's been very similar for us. But because of the spread of our portfolio, we do see a lot of interesting things that emerge as winners. So it's definitely that, with B2B SaaS platforms kind of coming up on top. But one of our biggest performers actually was a marriage app for conservative societies. And we exited 16x to Match Group, which is not something that you'd expect to see, especially when you're investing day to day. But we're seeing some of these outliers really becoming, these niche businesses really becoming some of the best performers in our portfolio. And then the rest, of course, we have logistics like Shifa and Ila that play in the logistics space. But again, very similar to what we shared there.
Well, I want to ask you a specific question because I know you're both investing in Francophone Africa as well as Anglophone Africa. Have you seen any difference in, your ROI between startups in Francophone Africa and startups in Anglophone Africa, especially looking at some dynamics like there's a common currency in Francophone Africa, just its integration in Africa?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing that there's a lot of focus on Francophone Africa because some of the advantages we are beginning to see now from, similar currency, similar culture, almost similar language. You find out that it's now quite easy to build and scale businesses there. And there may be favorable government policies, to be honest. So in terms of ROI, are we seeing a difference? I mean, when you combine all these macroeconomic conditions, obviously that begins to give founders from Francophone Africa some sort of advantage. However, a lot of the big markets on the Anglophone side they have big advantages from, large markets, large customer base. In short, when you speak to founders in Anglophone Africa, they dream very big. They see the world, differently. In Francophone Africa, they see it in terms of community. I'm building a business for Dakar. You speak to a Nigerian founder and he's building Uber for Africa, right? You see that, the way they dream and the way they see businesses are quite different. This doesn't take away from the potential returns at the end of the day. But what we're seeing is different types of businesses emerge in those different markets. So if you look at Francophone Africa, there's so much investment now in businesses that are enabling mobile money or even climate tech, as compared to, say, Anglophone Africa, where fintech still takes a chunk of the investment, but we're beginning to see investments in maybe more logistics, because again, large population, you have to distribute goods and services. So in the end, I don't think when we compare them in terms of a return profile, anyone is better than the other. It just depends on your thesis and your risk appetite.
Okay. I think I would add to that just briefly that we have to also put it in context that Anglophone markets have been receiving significantly more capital than Francophone markets for many, many years. Okay. And so we're not comparing apples to apples, we're comparing apples to oranges. So Francophone West Africa is just now building up this ecosystem, and we're just now seeing a lot of traction from that side. I think over the next 10 years, we'll start to see a bit more of a leveling out. But for now, it's apples to oranges.
So really. I'm beginning to see companies scale from Anglophone Africa into Francophone Africa.
Exactly.
Which is an opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So we've got just under 2 minutes left, and I'd like us to talk about the challenge that you explained earlier, which is the lack of diverse capital coming into your funds to invest to startups, and to ask each of you to comment on that, to say, what do you think the actual challenge is, and how can we begin to get more diverse capital into the fund? Is it our perceptions? Is it our narratives as African? Are we having high net worth individuals who are investing outside of the continent, or investing in more conventional asset classes? What's actually the challenge, and maybe speak to the solution? I think I can give you all 30 seconds each.
I would very quickly say it's just bringing diverse stakeholders into one room to understand the potential that exists in entrepreneurial opportunities on the continent. Okay. We've done this successfully by crowdsourcing sort of capital that we've then leveraged for low interest loans that then co-invest with equity. So we show that we have skin in the game through the equity investment, and then we can also use that to catalyze other types of funding. Okay. And I think very often the challenge that we saw is that these always happen in different platforms, right? Whenever there's like development finance, they have their own conferences, VCs have their own conferences. So how do we get everyone into one room to collaborate on innovative financing mechanisms, just to kind of grow SMEs, startups, and have the same end goal, understanding that impact and commercial returns can be intertwined, which is our belief and philosophy.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think, like you said, there's a huge disconnect between the stories and the successes on the continent versus what's going out there and what people are hearing about what we're doing. I think there was a whole 3 months earlier where we're only talking about this startup graveyard and we were having this little fit about it. But comparatively to other markets, it was very similar. So it wasn't like an Africa unique thing. So I think it's more about us telling our stories and telling them well, and then that will attract a lot more diverse capital, which is what we need, like you said.
Perfect. You've got...
I absolutely agree.
Everything we have said.
The storyteller basically controls the narrative of the world.
Okay.
Silicon Valley, yes, even with all the returns, has been all about stories, kind of stories that have been told. And we need to start telling our stories in better ways. We're having exits. They might not be $500 million, but exits are happening. People are building great businesses. If you don't tell stories, we can't expect the Western world or the Western investors to come tell better stories than us. We should be setting the pace. We should be setting the narrative. In another panel, I was saying, why should YC pick businesses and then we decide to invest in those businesses? YC should be coming to 3 of us and saying, who are the businesses you're seeing on the continent? Who should we be speaking to? And then we go and identify those businesses and tell the world that these are the guys you should be speaking to, right? We have to tell our stories and own our stories while telling that.
Gentlemen, lady, thank you so much for joining me on this panel.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, everybody.
Now, to kick off the Forbes Under 30 Summit Africa Pitch Battle, please welcome Dr. Brett Lindall Singh, CEO AOM Group, Alpha and Omega MedTech.
Should I go? Yes. Okay, thank you. Where am I going? All right. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me at the back? Awesome. I'm Dr. Brett. It's good to meet you all. And I'm going to be introducing one of the amazing parts of this summit. It's called the Forbes Africa Pitch Battle. It was conceptualized by some of us, the Forbes Africa Under 30 listers. We decided that we needed to create a platform where we are cultivating the next generation of young entrepreneurs on the continent. I'm from Pietermaritzburg, South Africa, and our company is based in Sandton, Johannesburg. As Alpha and Omega Group, we are the sponsors of the pitch battle and one of the sponsors of the summit this year. We're very, very excited to showcase 3 amazing contestants who are going to be pitching to you all, but I'm going to need some of your help. So each of the pitchers have 2 minutes to come and pitch, and we have some of the panelists that you just met just now who are going to be judging them. And when I say pitch, when I say ready, I want you guys to say pitch, okay? So let's quickly just try it out, really. So I'm going to say ready, and I want everybody to shout pitch. And as you shout pitch, they have 2 minutes. The 2 minutes starts. Are you guys ready? Okay, so ready? Okay, again, we need, I think we're still sleeping. Let's go again. Ready? Awesome, that sounds great. So I just want you to encourage these guys. We have 2 contestants that are from Botswana, and we also have another contestant from Windhoek, Namibia. Awesome. So yes, you know, if you came to the summit and maybe you haven't made the Forbes Under 30 list, I'm sure you've heard from the curator, Chanel, some of the things they're looking at. But I want you to consider as well applying to the pitch battle and being part of this, because you need to tell people about your business. You need to tell people about your business, and this is the best opportunity for you to do that. So today we're going to introduce you to our first pitcher. I hope you guys are ready. She's from Botswana. Her name is Dadi Rai, and she has built a technology company in the security technology area. So I'm going to ask Dadi Rai if she's ready to come up. Let's give her a round of applause. Lovely. Is Dadi Rai here? All right, okay. We're going to quickly just ask the judges to come up on stage really quickly. Let's give them a warm welcome. Okay, judges, just once more, if you could just introduce yourselves again and tell us from what fund you guys are coming from. Uwem, let's start with you, sir.
Hi, I'm Uwem. I'm the head of investment at Launch Africa Ventures. We are a multi-stage, multi-sector fund, and we have over 150 investments across 22 countries on the continent.
Hi, everyone, again. My name is Namara. I'm partner with the Africa Seed Fund by Flat 6 Labs. It's an $85 million fund investing in early to seed stage startups in Africa. Yeah.
Hi, everyone, again. I'm Hope Ditakanyani, investment principal at Founders Factory Africa. We're an early stage investor, writing checks up to $250,000 US, and we're always keen on new talent across the continent to back.
Awesome. So, judges, we have 3 amazing contestants. They've already been through a stage of auditing to get into the semifinals, and this afternoon they pitched in the semifinals, and they were chosen out of 10 semifinalists. So I want you guys to encourage them. Some of them has taken a real effort to come here. We had a gentleman that flew from Cairo to come and pitch. We had a gentleman from Belgium. We had people from South Korea and Asia. So I really hope that you can encourage them during this time. And just to confirm, we're going to be judging them according to the criteria of their pitches, especially their elevator pitch, to see if they've got any traction in their business, what problem they're solving, as well as who is their addressable market. So without any further ado, let's once again welcome Daddy Rai to come up. Daddy Rai. Let's give her a round of applause. Awesome. So I hope you guys remember what I just taught you just now. We're going to encourage her. And ready?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dadrai Mashain Devu. I'm from Squeaker Solutions. We are a mobile app development company currently working on a neighborhood watch application that is meant to assist neighborhoods in Botswana better report issues that are happening within their country and their neighborhoods. The application is meant to assist people in Botswana better report issues, as after COVID, issues of reporting have become a lot harder for people to get out because people have become more withdrawn within themselves. The application is meant to make this an easier process to make people open up to themselves as well as their environment, as well as to let people know of issues sooner than later. The application has two main forms of income. We do it through the neighborhood watch app version, as well as the company support system, where security companies can register themselves on our platform and offer their products at a subsidized rate. For instance, offering their services for a week, for a month. Let's say you're out of town for a week and you need somebody to come over to your house and look after it. That's where you can go and make sure that somebody is there to look after you, because not everyone has someone to mind their house. The application also offers a neighborhood watch version where people can then alert their neighbors if something is going wrong. The application has several forms of income through the aforementioned means, as well as the fact that we've actually managed to create a minimum viable product that we are currently testing in Pakalani. Currently, we're actually hoping for the funds to develop the final version of the application for launch in November and the full-scale launch throughout Botswana by the end of December, with full saturation in SADC by the end of next year. So hopefully with your assistance, Botswana as well as SADC will be a much safer place. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Daddy Rai. And we have 3 minutes for questions and answers from the judges.
Wow.
That's loud.
Cool. I have two questions. Thank you so much for that pitch. The first one is, you started with a mobile development company. You could have built anything. Why are you passionate about this problem? And then the second one is, out of all the income streams that you have, where are you seeing the most traction?
Well, my company at the moment is currently still at the ideation startup stage, so we haven't started revenue at the moment. As for why I started this business, I may not look it, but I'm actually very passionate about the safety of those who are around me. And I figured that currently at the moment, I've also just moved out of my parents' house, so outside of the leg of a broken chair, I have no way of letting people know I'm in danger, I need some help. And the application started out as a device and eventually morphed into an application. So that is my passion for it. I've been working on it for 6 years, and I will continue to work on it until everyone has it in their phones.
Thank you so much for that pitch. Really concise. Could you share with us a little bit about your go-to-market strategy? So I know you're still in your MVP stage. How do you get this into everyone's hands?
Now, my idea behind the application is that it's meant primarily to serve the youth and the people who have poor access to funds. So we are going to access them through marketing online, as well as flyers in person, as well as meetings in places like universities, your UBs, your Baisakos, the places where people are just now starting to live their lives and get started with everything, so that people can know that security companies are not something that are expensive to access. They now have an entryway into security, and once they're more financially able, they can better secure themselves.
Well done on your pitch. I want you to talk through the monetization strategy. How do you intend to make money and keep this business sustainable?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. We have two main ways of making money on the application. That is through the companies and through the neighborhood watches. The application allows for neighborhood watches to be established by individuals and their communities that will allow for alerts to be sent throughout their communities. That's the first form of monetization. We allow access through our applications through monetizations in that means. As for the companies, we give them a platform to access not only our services, but the ability to see where their employees are as well as their current customers so that they can better manage everything and perhaps even see where they're having shortfalls in targeting the general population.
Very quickly, could you tell us a bit about the competitive landscape?
Currently, there are actually two main companies that are of a direct competitor to my business. That is a company called Namola. It's based in South Africa. And they specialize quite similarly in a neighborhood watch as I do, but they are still based in South Africa. So while they are not yet an immediate threat, they are something that
Time. Let's give Dadirai one more round of applause. Thank you so much. Lovely. You can take it. Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone. Did everyone enjoy that? This is what the summit is about. You need to tell people about your business, and the best way to do that is a clear and concise pitch. Dadirai pitched in 2 minutes, and I hope you guys could get a brief understanding of what she's been doing. Next up, we have the CEO of Aurora Media Group. He aims to disrupt the streaming industry in Africa. Let's welcome my brother from Botswana, Mwagi. You can. Ready?
This is Africa, a continent teeming with creators boasting millions of followers, but no direct media monetization and distribution. Which is why we, Aurora Media Group, Botswana's first and only tech-backed startup, created Aurora TV, a live and on-demand TV streaming platform dedicated to the Middle East and Africa. All happening on a two-tier system with an ad and a product placement tier for $9.99 and a premium tier for $14.99. This while happening with partnerships with international giants such as IBM and NVIDIA and ABU International for big data and AI integration, all happening within a total addressable market of $9.2 billion, which we have tapped into $1.2 billion actual market value due to the high adoption of media and internet streaming services across Africa. And our traction? Well, besides having 50,000 monthly subscribers, where we soft launched in 117 African countries, in which sadly, because of load balancing, we have 500,000 people that are on our waiting list as we are pushing forward with 1,500 creators currently on our library that have contributed 39,000 hours of content to us, and we have 3 major content aggregators on our platform. This happening within a space that has been completely saturated by Netflix with a 65% market share and Showmax, which is all-encompassing within its offering, with us covering our niche by offering direct communication with the end user and the consumer, of which we reach by doing marketing, segmented marketing campaigns, community building, and strategic partnerships. So, if you're looking to learn more about what we're doing, get in touch with us. No solicitation.
With time to spare. Awesome.
Great.
Mwagi, you ready for your questions?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Judges, take it away.
Yeah, I'm happy to kick us off here. So if I understand correctly,
Yeah.
you're in direct competition with social media.
No.
In terms of content consumption.
No, I'm in direct competition with DSTV and Netflix. Yeah, Netflix, which owns 65% of the market, like I had stated, and Showmax, that's all-encompassing within its offering. Yeah.
Right. And how are you differentiating yourself? Is it the local content?
What we have decided to do is in 2 facets. One, we have decided to work on a 70-30 contribution strategy in which it's 70% African content and 30% Western content due to our media partnerships with entities I choose to not list at the moment. And we have currently expanded into the Middle East, of which we are trying to make sure that we can accommodate all the minorities across the continent as a whole, because guess what? 46% of Africa is Muslim. So who's actually catering to those people if not us? As one of them. Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the success stories for some of the content creators? Obviously, getting more is dependent on how much people can actually monetize. So can you just flesh that out? And then the second question I have, okay, wait, maybe
I have
deal with that.
ADHD. Let's go one by one. Yeah. If we're going to talk about local creators, I'm just going to let me be specific first. Within our platform or in general?
Within your platform.
Okay. We are working with YouTube creators, helping them film their content anew from the beginning, of which we're in closing conversations with a company called XR Stage, which allows us to basically put up a studio, and then anyone can film from anywhere in the world. If you watch The Mandalorian or anything out of Disney in the last 2 years, all of it was in one place, and we're going to be the first company in Africa that actually executes stuff like that. You see?
And then
Second question.
The follow-up question is just on the margins, because I imagine that you need a lot of different infrastructure partners to kind of support creation of content, etc.
Yeah.
So could you just give a high level of what the margin looks like for this business?
Margin in terms of revenue?
How much
Well, I'll tell you this. Because we're aggregating content and we're working with a lot of free-to-air content in a lot of other areas, the only margin we're encountering and taking a hit on is for the sports distribution, because we're offering the entire library from EPL, NBA, you name it, and all we're coughing up is $4.99, and everything is ours, man.
I just have one more question.
Yeah.
What is your North Star metrics? And don't say subscribers.
What is our North Star?
Yeah.
Well, one, I live in Botswana. Botswana is one of the most peaceful countries in the world and has one of the most talented creators, but we have not been able to create policies and the likes in a way that accommodates to take us to the rest of the world. So much that, in fact, in general, Africa in general, people are not working with Hollywood budgets, but we have stories that are actually worth the world.
Time. Yeah. Thank you so much, Margie. All right, our last contestant is from Windhoek, Namibia. Who's been to the west coast of Africa? Or who lives on the west coast? Okay, nobody from here. Tateleni is a game designer, and the name of his company is called EduGame. So I want you guys to give him a warm round of applause as he comes up to pitch our last contestant.
Okay. Is my mic working?
Yeah, you're working.
Cool.
Yeah. Come here.
Cool.
I'll let you know when you're ready.
Okay.
Ready?
Set. Go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tutaleni Ilonga. I am the co-founder and CEO of EduGame Namibia. What EduGame Namibia does is we're an innovation hub that's trying to create a sustainable environment around game development, not only in Namibia, but in Africa as well. In other words, we also want to gamify the education system. You see, the biggest problem we have in Namibia and Africa is our education system is too traditional, not modern. We need to merge traditional and modern so we can create a teaching method that the kids will pass. Kids aren't failing today because they're not smart. Kids are failing today because they're not challenged. For example, my brother and me, he was very organized. He did sports, he did everything. I didn't do sports, I was a gamer. Fast a few years forward, he's more organized how he does things. I'm disorganized. So we need to sort of introduce game development into schools so that it makes education fun. So our traction, we're endorsed by MTC, one of the biggest telecommunications in Namibia, and NAST as well, a university. Together with NAST, we're working on a curriculum to gamify the education system so we can introduce gaming to universities. And the other thing I want to add is, me being here is a big achievement for gaming, because does Forbes highlight game developers or people who are into gaming? And think of it, gaming is the field that makes the most money in the world, yet it's underrated in Africa. Why are we not in it? That's where I come in. I've been in gaming for 6 years, and guess what? I never made money. Why? Because nobody taught me how to do it. So I believe that history is a study to not make the mistakes repeated in the past. So with my students, what I do is I teach them how to not make mistakes I did in the past. That's teaching them financial literacy, as we're teaching them gaming as well. So far, we've trained about 45 people, and we operate in Joburg as well. We have our online students from that. So I want to thank everyone, and what we really want is that we want to scale up in countries like Botswana, and we also need funding to build our innovation hub in Kadatura.
Thank you. Thank you, Tsetelani. Yes, questions from the judges.
I think you should breathe first. Well done. Well done. I didn't get a sense of how you were going about gamifying. Is it an app? Is it a web platform?
No.
How are you doing that?
It's games. So I worked on an Explorium game that teaches...
I know it's games, but it's
in games.
So how? When you say games?
Games.
On an Android device?
Android and board games. Monopoly is gamification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Board games.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the monetization?
The monetization. So how we make our money, we make it from subscription. Whether if we're doing bootstraps or the parents paying per month for their students, whether it's online and in person. And that's how we make our money so far from how we are doing the gaming ecosystem and stuff. So in the future, if the kids create games and they are on the Play Store, we're going to take 10%. And they keep the 90% of it, because that's how you sustain the market, because we don't want to be greedy. We don't want to teach these kids and steal from them at the same time.
Gotcha.
Games have obviously been in existence before technology. What are you leaning on in terms of market trends now that you believe now is the right time for this sort of business?
Just repeat that.
Why do you think now's the right time in terms of the maturity of Africa and the way people are thinking about the evolution of education?
Yeah.
Why do you think now is the best time for this solution to take off?
Now is the best time because there's a discontinuity between kids and parents. Parents are traditional, kids are modern. So you have to merge the two. So if you merge the two and you include gaming and gamification, you solve the issue. Because remember, we're creating a sustainable environment around gaming. So you're killing the stone of being a game development ecosystem in Africa, and at the same time, you're also killing the education perspective, because there's AI. But what we do is we say, merge education, merge traditional and teaching methods, where the teacher teaches for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then he says, I'm giving you guys a 5 minutes rate, and then after 5 minutes, we're going to watch a video, and if it's a subject like accounting, you can introduce Monopoly. Right? If you taught me break even, this is break even, and if you played your Monopoly game, you didn't break even, I'm not failing that exam.
And then just a follow-up question. Obviously, education is quite a traditional system. What do you believe would be the greatest lever to change behavior? Governments and standardized education, or parents, or what is your thoughts on the go-to-market to evolve the behavioral change that
The behavioral changes, I believe it's 3 people. It's the government, and it's the parents, and it's the students. The government has to come in, but the parents also have to teach their kids. If you can't teach them education, you have to teach them how to make money. For me, for example, a neighbor gave me $5 to just wash his car. Today I'm here because I took that knowledge with. And that knowledge is so rare, and that's the one we need to introduce, because that's what's going to help the kids.
Yeah.
I had an additional question, but time's up.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Tsetelani. Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right, guys, we are done with our pitch battle finalists. We're going to take some time with the judges to deliberate on who was the winner. But did you guys enjoy it? Amazing. So I'm hoping that you can continue to follow the evolving patterns around this summit by checking on the app. You can download the app for some updates. And please reach out to the Forbes Africa community. On behalf of all of the Forbes Africa under 30 listers, we want to thank you for your time. We thank all of the people who helped us put this together. And we hope that you and your business can create more success for the continent. I'll see you guys the next time. Thank you.
Now, for our following conversation, please welcome back interviewer Randall Lane, Chief Content Officer and Under 30 founder Forbes, and actress, humanitarian, UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador, Nomzamo Mbata.
All right, we're saving the best for last. Now, Omale has throat issues. We'll talk about that. I guess so. He's going to. I've been told we'll see him out tonight, which is probably the place he should be.
Right.
But we have our top closing conversation here with Nomzamo, who also last night you did an amazing job emceeing.
I have no voice.
Yes. But Nomzamo came through anyway, and that's who she is. I've known her a while, and she's a woman of her word. And so with a scratchy voice, here we go now. Nomzamo, have you, I even asked the audience, have you ever seen those television interviews where they take an old picture of the person and show it to them and embarrass them?
Are you about to do that to me?
I think we are.
Oh, no.
Now, what do you think? Did you have braces growing up?
Never.
No, of course not. They're great teeth. Did you have, were you awkward ever? Or you always, put together? We'll see. All right, we've got, if we put up on the screen, the embarrassing photo.
Oh, no. Randall,
this is
Nomzamo's
LinkedIn profile that I found this morning. Nomzamo, you are still on LinkedIn because I know you were an accountant or you studied accounting. I'm like, can that be true? Nomzamo, this doesn't strike me as an accountant. And that is you, right? You're from Durban. That must be you.
I think so.
That is you.
That doesn't even count. Oh, God.
So you were an accountant. You were a junior accountant, an accountant trainee, and you're still up there. So by the way, if you want to be LinkedIn friends with Nomzamo, and you need your taxes done, you're ready to go. All right. So the question is, listen, you went to CTU, right?
Yeah, UCT.
So you were UCT.
Any UCT people in the house? Hey!
Yes. That's like a super good school. So you were a nerd. You were a nerd at this great school studying accounting.
I still am a nerd. By the way, Dumelang, Sanmanani, hello, hola. Hi, everyone. I was.
So what's a nerd like you doing in all these big TV series and movies and all the things you do? How did you transition so quickly from nerd to superstar here?
Randall, I think my teachers always used to say to me that I would become like a newsreader. And then I would think to myself, that's so boring. But by the way, I respect newsreaders because that's a tough job. And then it would be you're going to be the first female president because you're so outspoken. And then all the naughty kids at school would call me Big Mouth because I was always doing public speaking, but I was always very much an academic. Yeah. And so for me, it was always the Shakespeare thing, passion versus reason. The reason was, go and study something where I can be able to take care of my family, which was accounting. And I was really good in numbers, still am, still counting and negotiating my contracts. And then also, the passion was just people. I've always been in the business of people. I've always loved people. I've always loved interacting with people. I knew that being in an office space in corporate, I knew I was going to suffer there.
Yep. And look where you are now. About 12 years later. Tell us about now. We have some good news. Your show got renewed. Tell us about this. This is exciting news.
Yeah. So look, it's been many years in the making. It's the story of Shaka Zulu, but most importantly, it's the story of the Nguni people. We wanted to tell a story that was much broader than just around an individual. We wanted to be able to really show who we are as a people when it comes to the different languages and cultures and people that have made up, the beautiful cultures that we get to celebrate in Southern Africa and all the way through to your South Sudan as well, because you find Nguni people there as well. So when we started many years ago, I was still just an actress who was going to be vying for one of the parts, but as we grew into the creative space with Bomb Productions, there was then the conversation of coming on board as an executive producer, which I was very nervous about because I kind of was okay with just being an actress on set who complains
But they
about
found out you
everything.
had your accounting degree. They're like,
And
oh,
then it was
yeah.
like, oh, so you kind of know about business. And also always just having like different things about, you know, the story and the creative process and how to make money and how to really galvanize in terms of like raising the funds to make this kind of story. So then it happened and I joined as an EP and then I also joined as Nandi. And we went out last year, June, and it was highly successful. It was well received. People loved it. People loved the story. It was the first time that we got to see a story of that scale, of magnitude. People loved the beauty of Shaka Zulu, of Shaka Ilembe, I should probably say. And also we wanted to be very authentic to the story. So obviously when we went out, everybody really, really loved it. And we got renewed for a second season. And now we're back at the Cradle of Humankind. If you haven't been to the Cradle of Humankind in Johannesburg, you've got to go see it.
It's about
It's
hour and a half
unbelievable.
south of here.
It's so
2 hours south
beautiful.
of here,
And so we're there. We're shooting there every day in that dust. But beautiful stuff, just knowing that you're a part of something that's really great and something that is going to be in existence.
No,
for
I've been there,
centuries.
and you feel the connection that humanity just.
We do. I mean, so many people had like spiritual encounters as well.
Yeah, I believe it. So last time we were hanging out, first, you know, you were so good at emceeing last night. I told you this, and it reminded me the last time we were hanging out, we were at Davos, at the World Economic Forum, and I was watching you know, interact with top world leaders, with, you know, Kagame, or whether it's, you know, we were at the, you know, President Rwanda, President of Ghana, you know, CEOs. It didn't, and you are so. There's a confidence about you that's just. It's so natural. Has that been developed, or were you born with that?
I'll probably say it's a bit of both. My grandmother always used to say that people are like the fingers on your hand, that they're not very equal, but you must treat them very equally. So I always say to people that for me, it's important to be able to be relatable to the man who's waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning and catching the train as much as I can be relatable to the guy who is running a multi-billion-dollar corporation or even a president of a country. You know, to be able to still be the same Nomzamo, to still be able to give of myself, to still be able to be in the business of just like people and being and treating people equally. It's you know, you watch some people and some people don't do that. Right. You know, some people kind of like look away if somebody is the cleaner at a building, but they'll be able to respect somebody who's running a certain department, and I don't believe in that. So I guess that's.
I always think that's a
the
good
thing.
measure of a person.
So
how
shout
they
out to my grandmama.
That's right. That's respect. What we have a bunch of questions from the audience. They're flying in quickly. What drives you the most? Money, impact, fame, other?
Not having money is an inconvenience. But what genuinely drives me is impact. I think if I have all the things that I have, if I have all these achievements and I'm on television and I do all the kinds of work that I do, but I still don't impact my society, I don't impact people around me, then I'm just but an empty vessel. I don't feel like I'm successful in anything. And I think that's why, you know, so many people ask me, what makes you still come back? You know, you have your career that you're pursuing and continuing to build on in Hollywood, but you still come back and you're helping to build schools in South Africa. You're still going to refugee camps and doing humanitarian work and field work, which is really, really tough. And for me, it's just important to be able to still have my feet on the ground.
Yep.
To know that I've made an impact in somebody's life, because there's no glory, as I like to say, there's no glory in being the single success story. Where we come from a continent of so many people that continue to be left behind, and so many areas and communities that continue to be marginalized, and to kind of be the girl who's just, you know, not looking back, I don't know, or looking around. That's what it is, looking around.
You look around, you make an impact, the money follows. You make an impact, the money follows.
Yeah.
To tell us about some of your work, you know, you do a lot of great work, I've seen it. So tell us about your work with the UN.
Oh, that work, gosh, it is my heart's true north. It really is.
I've always wanted to work with the United Nations. I've always thought that I'd go into UNAIDS because growing up I was just very much exposed to the HIV and AIDS epidemic, and a lot of my family members were affected by it, and I became a primary caregiver for so many of them. And so I was very much exposed and very much given the knowledge on ARVs and given the knowledge on the disease. I thought, oh, if ever I had to work for an agency at the UN, it would be UNAIDS. But when I connect the dots looking back, as the late Steve Jobs likes to say, is that I look at my very first time that I left South Africa. I was 14 years old. I was selected to go and represent my country, and it was Save the Children Sweden, because they used to have different agencies at the time that were like countries. And Save the Children Sweden had this huge conference that they were going to do in Kenya, where they were inviting kids from each country. So when I first got to Kenya, it was the first time I get to use my passport, and I get there and I'm like, oh, kids from Sudan, kids from the DRC, all these different languages, all our different faces coming together and speaking about the things that we go through as young people in the country. And that's how I'm like, oh, it makes sense that I went into the Refugee Agency of the United Nations, because I learned from very early on about just what the things that make us different, but the things that make us kin.
That's right. We got to know each other through your work with Global Citizen.
Yes.
How did you get involved with that, and what do you like about GC?
Oh, did you tell everyone that you were dragging me through the snow? Or you forgot that part?
I noticed that Africans aren't as good in the snow as others.
Woo.
So.
Have you felt our heat? Have you felt our sun? Did you see the sunset outside?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
No, so Global Citizen approached me because of the work that I do with the United Nations Refugee Agency, which is UNHCR, and also the work that I do with my nonprofit, which is the Nomzamo Lighthouse Foundation, where we support kids who are in primary and high school, but also tertiary level students who are studying towards the STEM disciplines. So if you have any students, or if you know of anyone who's really smart in the science and STEM, please reach out to the Lighthouse Foundation. We're constantly looking for young people to sponsor. And so I guess that's how Global Citizen happened. But also I liked the principles of Global Citizen and the things that they stand for, and also using the idea of pop culture and entertainment to galvanize young people and to galvanize people around the world to hold leaders accountable. So it's not really just about saying, oh, let's raise funds and do it, but we are the ones who vote for people, and these people get these positions and they get put into power, so why not hold them accountable?
Hold them accountable to end extreme poverty, which we need to do
and
in Africa
extreme
and the world.
poverty by 2030, but
we only
now.
have 6 years, but we can make a big dent, and like you said, that's about impact. We got a couple minutes left. There are a bunch of questions. Why don't we do like rapid fire here? All right, you're producing the most expensive South African TV production ever. Again, just got renewed. Do you believe that African television will this help African television get those kind of Hollywood budgets?
100%. I had a conversation with Ted Sarando last year in December, and I asked him, and we were talking about, what it is that he's looking for on the African continent and what it is that we are supposed to be making. And he said, if something is not hyper-local anywhere in Thank you. So if something's not hyper-local, people have to believe in the product. The people on the ground, the people on the continent have to believe in a Shaga Ilembe, so that when they are coming into the landscape, they want to know, like K-dramas and all these like incredible Southeast Asian productions that are coming out. They're popular on the ground, and that's what makes them work globally. So the reason why we continue to show that you must invest, not just like cut costs, but invest fully, so that we can be able to see the return on investment. And the return on investment is not only making stuff that we can equally be equal players in the world. When they're talking about your Game of Thrones, which are very expensive shows to make, we also have Shaga Ilembe. But also you see the commercial viability of African stories. So continue to write, continue to put together those pitch decks, and continue to put together something that not only is of a small scale, but also dream big. We deserve it.
I mean, the power of storytelling, of course, it's so immense. I mean, if you look at things like even Black Panther, which is kind of it's a parallel fiction, but it normalizes the idea of a strong Africa.
100%.
And that's exactly what you're doing. So there's even impact in the storytelling.
Absolutely.
You can have more impact in
Do
storytelling.
you know what I call it? I call it like a little curtain pull. You know, when you get a Black is King by your Beyonce, if you get a Lion King, which has been so highly successful for so many decades, and then you get a Black Panther, it's a little curtain for the world to pull it like this and say, hey, this works.
Right.
Because for so long, the narrative has been that African stories cannot sell globally, but African stories do have a global audience.
Yes, that's right. And you even see that. You're seeing that right now with music, with Afro beats.
Oh.
And now it's TV and movies. Do you like TV more or movies? You've done a bunch of both.
I like a good movie. I like a good movie. I mean, I sat through 3 hours of Oppenheimer, you know? So I like a good movie, but series is also a good thing. It's just that I don't have much time right now because I'm constantly like working and traveling. But I love movies.
Maybe a time for 1, 2 more, and then we're gonna. Will you stay and we can present the pitch battle winner together with Brett?
I'm terrible at that stuff because I'll tell you why. Because I just want everyone to win.
Everyone, by the way, everyone did win because they all got exposure, and that's the key to this. Again, going back to your confidence, can you teach confidence?
Yes, you can. You can. Because when you watch someone who is settled in themselves, when you watch someone who is uninterrupted in themselves, when you watch someone who is seated in the seat of their own soul, it inspires you to be exactly like that in your own way, not like they are. But I definitely think that confidence can be taught. I've seen it. I've seen people come out of their shell because somebody taught them that they can.
Well, related question. You, of course, first got famous in South Africa with the MTV surge.
I did.
And so there's a question from Kim about whether or not putting yourself out there, how important was that? And how hard was that for you to do that when you were still a junior accountant?
Yeah. It was so difficult. I almost did not go to those auditions because I thought, number one, I was not cool. Because a friend of mine was, oh, you should enter. And I said, I am not cool. Nobody wants to listen to me. I'm so boring. And then I just thought, I don't have fly clothes. I don't look fly. And all the other kids who were there entering this competition were so fly. And I was just not fly.
You had a calculator.
Oh, but I got into that room, and my first audition, I just thought to myself, girl, if you don't have it, fake it till you make it. And I got into that room and I said, oh, I see you're taking I see everybody's got 3 seconds in here. I'm about to take 30 minutes of your time. And everybody just laughed in the room, and immediately I was disarmed, so I wasn't so nervous. And then it was just like a conversation, and I remember Tim Horwood was just like, get out of here. You already know. Just get out of here. And that kind of just made me feel so confident in myself. But I definitely did not believe in myself. But I also know, and the thing about the VJ search, Randall, is the fact that I didn't win it. But I remember just waking up, I was like, whoa, I'm top 10 in the country. Gosh, now people have to vote for me? Ooh, okay. And then I was top 3, right? And it was never my dream to be famous. But then I got to top 3 in the country, and everyone was voting, and everyone was like really believing in this dream. And I was like, oh, I gotta win now because so many people are on this bandwagon. But here's the thing, I didn't win. But what I told myself was, I remember like in that moment when the winner was announced and she deserved it, I remember just saying, God, thank you for this no. I know you're preparing me for an even greater yes. And I got the biggest yes of my life because of that show that I didn't even win on, but I put myself out there. That's how I was actually scouted, and it became the biggest show on the continent, Isibaya, that went on for 8 seasons, and it was all over the African continent. And then I was like this nobody accountant girl into who you get to experience today.
First, I want everyone to give a hand to Namzana, who's not just a great professional, but a great human. So thank you. Thank you for everything you do. And part of the reason you're such a great professional is because you segued it perfectly. 3 finalists. You didn't win, but yet you were the big winner. We have 3 finalists coming out. Yes. Why don't we bring them out, Brett? Why don't you bring out the 3 finalists? We couldn't have a more perfect idea that even if you don't win, you win because people see you. They see your talent. Yeah. Or in this case, they see your ideas. So let's give a big hand also to the 3 finalists. Let's give a hand to Brett. He did such a good job with this.
Yes.
Forbes Africa cover star, and let's bring it, guys. Come on out. We're gonna announce the winner right now.
Right, let's have our judges up. Yes.
Now, what's at stake here is, first of all three. Let's give these guys a hand. You know how hard it is to get up in a room in front of almost 1,000 people, and you didn't know you were going to do this, and it's a big stage and a lot of lights. And let's give a hand to the judges. Such great questions.
I'll go, where do I stand?
And right now, here we go. We're going to find out the winner. But remember, the bottom line is everybody here won because what you got to do is to almost 1,000 people. You got to share your story with people. So when you see these guys over the next couple of days, talk to them about their ideas, help them out. So you're already winners there. Just, we have your case study here. Maybe even the two who lose will do better than the one who wins. Yeah. But the one who wins also gets to brag, and that's cash. When you get to go and raise money saying you won the under 30 pitch competition, that's cash. You're all winners, but somebody's going to win among the winners. And with that, Brett, you going to let us know, or who's?
Amazing. So, as Randall said, these three finalists have really done well. As I said, we've had people that have flown thousands of miles to come and participate. We've had Moagi, Dadirai, and Tutaleni. Your winner is, drum roll please, Moagi from Aurora Media Group.
Oh, wow.
Lovely. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes to that.
And by the way, Moagi just met some of the top 3 VCs in Africa right here, and he pitched to them.
We'll take a picture.
So,
congratulations.
we want to present you with the certificate.
Here it is. This is this is why you do it. This is why you do all the work.
Right?
Come on, get around, guys. All the winners, come on, get around.
Lovely.
Let's go.
Let's all come in.
Yep.
All right. This is yours, sir. This is yours now. This is
Thank
yours.
you.
And you guys join too. Yeah, come. All right, we'll see you out tonight. We'll have things to celebrate. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Great night out in Gaborone tonight. Service day tomorrow. Thank you for a great day.
How do I get an audience
Thank
now?
you.
I don't actually.
Today's program.
My wife has my phone.
Thank you to all of our phenomenal speakers and attendees for making this an amazing day. We would like to once again thank our anchor